Now, here is something that we don't talk about often enough: retirement.
224.50.
Daniel Fitzpatrick's original goal: retire at 60. He's now 64. Fitzpatrick's a senior planning executive making low six figures with money worry.
The benchmarks move as I get older.
What's your timeline for retirement?
Work till I'm 70, and then to look for something part-time afterward.
The national average for one person to live comfortably in retirement, roughly $967,000 in savings. Every retirement scenario is different, but that's $74,000 a year for the average American worker to live out his retirement. What's troubling? The typical retirement account's balance: $144,000.
Now, since Americans are living longer these days, more and more people may be opting to work until their 70s. But for the most part, it's pretty safe to assume that the typical person in their 70s is probably retired, or at least partially. And at that point, you may be tapping your IRA, your 401k plan consistently rather than just leaving the money alone to let it grow. Now, just to give you guys a benchmark for where everybody's at, a recent study showed how the average 70-something-year-old doesn't have a very large nest egg to work with. Now, apparently, the average savings balance for people in their 70s is just $113,900. Now, if you withdraw from that sum at a rate of 4% a year, which is the general recommendation from most financial experts, then that amounts to just $4,556 of annual income. And that 4% withdrawal rate may actually be too generous given today's economic environment. Now, to be fair, it may be part of the reason why 70-somethings have an average of $113,900 in savings is that they've already started to dip into their nest eggs. Now, if you're in your late 70s, for example, it may be that you're 10 years into retirement. So, that would make sense, right? But all told, $113,900 is not a lot of money for retirement purposes. So if you're finding that money is tight right now, you may need to get very creative in generating more income. Some people who find that money is uncomfortably tight in retirement may opt to unretire, which means that they end up going back to work, maybe a full-time job on a full-time basis, and they try to boost their savings. But that might not be something that you necessarily want to do. So in that case, you can explore alternative ways to generate income without making yourself miserable. So there, of course, is the gig economy. Monetize a hobby or find flexible work that's enjoyable, whether it's selling crafts or becoming a tutor. Now, another thing you may be able to do is monetize your home if you own one. So let's just say you have an area in your home that you don't use very much, maybe like a finished basement. So you could rent it out and you could use that money that you collect from your tenant to help cover your bills. And if you don't want a full-time tenant, consider renting out parts of your home. So if you live in a place where parking is hard to come by, or maybe you have an extra spot in your driveway, rent it out. Desperate commuters would love that. And you might even try renting out storage space in your home for cash if you have plenty of it. But really, having almost $120,000 in the bank isn't the end of the world here. So if you're creative about generating income, you may find that you're able to get by on a smaller nest egg. And don't underestimate the power of cutting some expenses. Getting rid of a car and taking the bus when you need to go places, it could help you save a bundle of money on maintenance and automobile insurance. Think about the bills that you can shed without making yourself unhappy, because, just a few changes, they could go a long way. For some people, they had to be forced into retirement and things turned out for the best because of it. Otherwise, they would have just kept working. And so what they did, a combination of downsizing their home, severance pay, and extended unemployment benefits to retire early. Some may have panicked because they were having a hard time finding another job, but others spent their downtime doing spreadsheets and figuring out that they actually had enough money to retire. So in general, retirees who struggle to meet their basic needs, they're the ones who could not accumulate enough money during their active years to meet the needs in the first place. Retirement choices could determine a lot of things here. Now, I know two people who both spent the same amount of time, the same number of years in the civil space, but one invested through a wealth manager and the other through a 401k. Now, surprisingly, the wealth manager route won out with about $4.2 million, while the 401k route had roughly $1.8 million. Now, am I recommending wealth managers? Oh, definitely not. I'm guessing that there's countless stories out there of Americans seeing the reverse and their 401k is beating their wealth managers and their hidden fees. I've come across individuals earning an impressive $300,000 a year with nothing to show for it but mountains and mountains of debt. Now, on the flip side, I've met people who are earning a modest $40,000 a year and managed to save a remarkable $700,000. It's all about how much you save, not how much you make necessarily. But really, I just want you guys to get some perspective so that you know what your options are. Now, what's worrying though is that workers are still rating their retirement savings at record rates, seeing their retirement accounts as savings that they can dip into and not have to think too much about it. 37% of workers have already taken out a loan, early withdrawal, and hardship withdrawal from their 401k or similar plan or IRA, according to a recent study. And this matches 2022's level, which is also the highest level in history, according to the survey. Now, there is a whole mess of reasons, really. Pessimistic outlook for their retirement, a lack of emergency funds, and stretched household budgets that have forced them to tap their nest eggs. The practice could become even more prevalent as new rules make it easier to do so. The survey found that 30% took a loan and 21% took an early and or hardship withdrawal. Now, in the first 3 months of 2023, the number of planned participants taking hardship withdrawals, it jumped 33% from the same period a year earlier, with workers taking out an average of $5,100 each. This is according to Bank of America's recent report. And so basically, the lack of savings is hurting everyone, whether you're Gen Z entering the workforce, saddled with student loans, or you're Gen X supporting both kids and parents. So, when a financial emergency does come, 1 in 5 people are sacrificing their retirement security by taking on 401k early withdrawals or loans. Now, other reasons for hardship withdrawals: paying for certain medical expenses, 17%, payments to prevent eviction from one's principal residence, 16%, expenses and losses incurred due to a disaster in a federally declared disaster area, 15%, payments to tuition and related educational fees, 14%, cover costs related to purchase of principal residence, 13%, expenses for qualified repairs to damage of principal residence, 12%, and burial of funeral expenses, 6%. And there's no mincing words about it. Some of the working population simply needs to access their money now, and this includes tapping into their retirement accounts. Now, of course, those withdrawals, they have long-term consequences. 4 in 10 or 41% of workers think that future generations of retirees will be worse off than those currently in retirement. Their greatest retirement fears: outliving their savings and their investments, 39% of the people. Social Security will be reduced or cease to exist, 36%. Declining health that requires long-term care, 35%. And not being able to meet the needs of their family, 32%. And possibly long-term care costs at 31%. Do y'all feel the same? And if you have money in a retirement account, chances are you lost some money with the recent stock market slump. The S&P 500 index dropped nearly 20% last year, and the average workplace retirement plan, the balance fell to $144,280 at the start of the year to $111,210 by the end of the year. Now, according to the median retirement plan balance, it fell to $23,818, which is the lowest in a decade. The median annual return was negative 14.7% during 2022. But so far for 2023, markets have been way more encouraging, with the broad S&P 500 index up more than 14% by the end of June. And the same thing with retirement plans. Balances for defined contribution plans such as 401ks, they are up for the year. Plan assets were $9.8 trillion at the end of the first quarter, up 5% from the end of 2022. But really, I think that there are just some things that people forget to account for. So one example, knock on wood, the loss of a spouse. Not only emotionally devastating, but it can also be a serious reduction to the household income while the expenses remain largely the same. And you suddenly find yourself having to do all the things that your loved one used to do at a time when you were least equipped to do so. The impact on your well-being can't be overestimated. Now, I heard this from some retirees who speak from experience, so definitely something to consider when you're making these retirement computations. I know a lot of older generations who took early retirement during the first C-19 wave, they have fallen into poverty. In the UK, 48% or 390,000 people of the roughly 812,500 50 to 70-year-olds who retired in 2020 through 2021, they're now living in poverty. The Institute of Fiscal Studies has revealed, meaning their annual income is below 60% of the average household. But really, in my experience talking to retirees, their biggest regret with planning for retirement is not starting earlier. So let's talk about the financial freedom concept of compound interest. So according to the government's compound interest calculator, with an initial investment of $20 and a monthly contribution of $40, investors could make more than $38,000 in 30 years, assuming a 6% rate of return with 3% variance. Now, of course, when you're younger, you don't really have that much investment capital to begin with. But hey, if you look at the compounding potential, any small amount can contribute a lot. Now, with compound earnings, you're earning returns on your entire account balance, not just the money that you're investing. And so the more your balance grows, the more you're going to earn. And so over time, your savings will grow astronomically. So for example, let's just say you have a goal of saving $500,000 by the time you turn 65. If your investments are earning a modest 8% average annual rate of return, here's how much you need to be investing every single month depending upon what age you start saving. Saving for retirement is never easy, especially the farther away you are from it. But the sooner you get started, the less that you're going to need to invest every single month in order to reach your goal. So if you don't have hundreds of dollars per month to invest, that's okay. The real financial nugget here is that every little bit counts. Time is your most valuable asset when it comes to saving for retirement. And it's way better to save a small amount that you have now versus putting it off later. By the way, if you guys own a home, make sure your home is protected. Get your free home warranty quote. There's a link in the description down below this video. Now, just remember, during the first few years after you begin saving, progress will likely seem slow. And that's normal, so don't sweat it. It takes time for compounding earnings to actually work their magic, so don't expect to start seeing significant gains for a good 10 years or so. Checking your bank account daily can be highly discouraging, but try your best to stay focused for the future. But with compound interest helping, all of your hard work will now pay off down the road, and investing consistently for decades will definitely pay off. So let me show you an example of how far $100 per month will go over time, assuming that you're earning an 8% average annual rate of return for your investments. Pretty impressive chart, huh? Watching this video and talking to me about retirement savings and income, it's already a great start. By the way, if you guys made it this far in the video, do your boy a favor, drop a quick like for the video. Also consider subscribing to the channel, and I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one.